teach. A few minutes early, I'm just gonna like make sure everything's working on my end and let you guys have a chance to join the live stream that we're doing right now inside the Facebook group. So I'm just gonna refresh my screen, make sure that I am live yet. Yeah, okay, looks like we are live. Cool, okay, now I can see we've got people joining us. As you're joining, say hello in the chat. Let me know where you're joining us from and how you're doing today. And how do I sound? Is the audio good? It should be really clear with not much of an echo. I have really high ceilings where I live, so it's kind of hard to eliminate all of the echo, but it should sound pretty good. Cool. Yay, Melinda's here. Johan's here. Karen's here. Tice is here. Prakash is here. Welcome, everybody. Good. It seems like it's working, but if the audio doesn't sound good, let me know. I'd appreciate it. It's hard to tell. Let's see who else is joining us. Marilyn is from New Hampshire. She says, I sound great. Thank you, Marilyn, for letting me know. Okay, awesome. Now a lot of you guys are commenting pretty quickly. Lorna says I'm live. Sound is clear. Sharoma's here. Maynard's from Aurora, Colorado. Solange is here from Quebec, Canada. Loretta is here from, I don't know how to say that city, South Africa. Peter Maritzburg, perhaps. That's awesome. I'll have to look that up. And Thea's here from South Africa also. Daryl's here from Arlington, Texas. Lori says hello. Rebecca's here. Archer's here. Jill's here. Sweet. Everybody's joining. We've got 50 people live so far, 57 people. It's going up. I'm a few minutes early, but we're going to get started in a couple minutes. Just let everybody have a chance to join us live. Tice is from Toronto, Canada. Cool. We've got people from the US, Canada, South Africa. Where else? I'm sure I missed some of the comments. It's going pretty quick. I'm going to scroll back up for a second. Yeah, so good morning. If you're on the West Coast of the United States, good afternoon. If you're on the East Coast, and good evening if you are pretty much anywhere else. Great. Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. So let's see. I am going to. Oh, yay. That's cool. Trisha's from Northern Ireland, so we do have some people from Europe joining us. Jane's from Scotland. That's awesome. I have a little bit of Scottish in me, and Irish actually, and Polish and Czech. If anybody's interested. Donna says morning from New Zealand. Yeah, it's early in New Zealand. Thanks for joining us, Donna. Joan is from Calgary, Canada. Perfect. Cool. So keep introducing yourselves while you guys are joining. I'm going to make my screen bigger and get the slides set up so we could just dive in because it's the top of the hour. Let's see. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. And today's part 2. I hope you've been looking forward to it. I'm really excited because today's class is one of my favorites to teach because I always see that people have a lot of really big breakthroughs and aha moments based on what they learn during today's training. So I know you guys are going to have a lot of really powerful aha moments as we go through this today. And for those of you who really pay attention, by the end of this 3-part series, you're definitely going to be walking away with really the whole blueprint for how it's possible for you to overcome insomnia and truly make insomnia become a thing of the past. Everything that we're focusing on throughout this 3-part series is about how to really resolve this issue for the long term. We talked about in part 1 about all of the quick fix sleep aid products that claim to fix your sleep, but as you remember from part 1, those things are really just a band-aid. And so what we do in this 3-part training is really set you up on the right path so that you no longer really have to waste your time trying one product after the other that doesn't really give you the progress that you deserve. So we don't want to waste your time anymore. So that's what this is all about. And really by the time that you've watched all 3 parts of this masterclass series, you're going to really now have a really solid foundational understanding of why you've been struggling to get rid of insomnia, why the things you've tried so far haven't worked, And then when we're done with part 3, which is going to be this Thursday, so we're moving really quickly now, parts 2 and 3 are both this week. By the end of part 3, you're really going to know the entire strategy behind the sleep success method that I teach and that I walk my clients through step by step. And you'll see exactly what needs to happen for you to get results as quickly and efficiently as possible. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I highly recommend that you at least go back and watch part 1 at some time later this week to make sure you don't miss it. But I'm going to assume that a lot of you have seen part 1 already, which is great. Actually, type number 1 in the chat if you have seen part 1. Whether you were there live or attended the replay, it doesn't matter. Type 1 in the chat if you did see part 1, I'm going to assume. So, because we're going to kind of really expand upon everything that we covered last week. And today we're really going to get into a lot of really fascinating stuff. And so I encourage you to maybe even go back and take some time to rewatch this later, because we're really going to dive deep into this. Maybe get a pen and paper if you want to take some notes, and definitely close out of any distractions. Close out of your email, I don't know, put your phone away or whatever you need to do to make sure that you can stay present for today's class. Awesome, I'm seeing lots and lots of ones in the chat. Perfect. So let's just dive into this. Let's go. Friendly reminder, I'm a normal person, right? I'm a normal person who had insomnia, and I just became obsessed and figured out how to fix my sleep on my own. I'm not a doctor, and so everything in this training is for information and educational purposes only. Everything I teach is always from my own personal experience. If I don't have personal experience with it, I won't mention it, and I'll be upfront and I'll let you know that I simply don't know the answer. I don't have all the answers, but what I have learned throughout my own sleep journey has also been able to help a lot of other people. And so that's why I do these trainings, to just kind of help as many of you as I can, because as I've learned, insomnia is entirely avoidable when you know what to focus on. If not everything resonates with you, that's totally okay. Just I encourage you to listen for what does resonate with you and focus mostly on that. And if you hate all of this, that's fine. It means my approach just probably isn't the best fit for you. And that's totally okay. But if this does resonate with you, then I highly encourage you to continue watching all 3 parts of this series. Like I said, I'm a former insomniac, and now I'm a sleep coach, and I help people all over the world learn how to turn off their racing minds and fall asleep without any sleep aid products whatsoever. And that's pretty much it. So let's go. So this masterclass series is all about helping you take charge of your sleep. And I like to say that I emphasize that piece of the sleep puzzle that is really way too overlooked. And it's what has the true power to help you heal from insomnia and actually see long-term results. And that's the power of your subconscious mind. I'm super passionate about this topic and the power of the subconscious. And really the goal of this masterclass series is to help you understand how all of this works, because this information that we're covering throughout parts 1 through 3 of the masterclass series, it's what's missing from the insomnia conversation. And it's critical that we start looking at insomnia from this new perspective. And so what you're going through right now in these 3 trainings is really essential for you to be able to implement all of these concepts effectively in your own life. In part 1, you learned that to take charge of your sleep, you must take your brain off autopilot. It has been amazing seeing all of your takeaways in the Facebook group from part 1 last week. I read through all of them, and so many of you are already applying what you learned about this last week, and you're already noticing an improvement in your sleep. Makes me so happy. And that's the beauty of this process, because just by you being here right now, you showing up for this training series, you're already taking your brain off autopilot, because you're already thinking in a new way about this. And I can tell that a lot of you are really starting to see just how powerful this information is and how you can really use this and really apply it to your sleep and to your own life, which is exactly why you're here today. And we're now going to move pretty quickly through parts 2 and 3 this week. Yes, I see someone is asking in the chat, is this part 2 right now? Yes, this is part 2 live right now. All right, so who remembers what keeps our brains on autopilot? What controls 95% of our lives? Type in the chat if you remember. If you were saying the subconscious mind, that's right. Very good. So to take your brain off autopilot, you must learn how to work with your subconscious mind. Having your brain on autopilot is like letting your brain just be the pilot of your life. While you're the passenger, in the backseat of the plane at the mercy of whatever your brain decides to do with zero control whatsoever. If you remember the little plane analogy we went through in part 1. But when you learn how to really harness the power of your subconscious mind, that's how you can finally become what I like to call the co-pilot of your life. And as the co-pilot, you now get to start handling the controls yourself. And you're no longer at the mercy of your brain's, what your brain learned in the past, your brain's past conditioning. And you really start learning to work with your brain so that you get the results that you want. Because you can use the power of your subconscious mind to go from racing mind to peace of mind. Awesome. I'm seeing from before, a lot of you are guessing subconscious mind in the chat, which is spot on. So here's the thing with the subconscious mind. If you don't use your subconscious mind to take yourself to shift from where you're at right now, which is dealing with a racing mind every night, to now transitioning into approaching your sleep in a new way where you can now have a peace of mind at night. If you don't focus on this piece of the puzzle, you have no control over your sleep, and insomnia is just going to keep running the show. And insomnia will just keep looping over and over and over again on autopilot, just like a hamster on a wheel. And we're going to be really taking a closer look at why this happens today, because part 2 is about why you've been kept stuck with insomnia. I like to explain this from the sense that in order to get unstuck, we have to first understand how you got stuck in the first place. Why does the mind want to keep racing at night? Why do you feel anxiety or stress when you're trying to fall asleep? Why is your brain not letting you fall asleep? So to sleep or not to sleep, that is the question. A lot of you have really been asking some good questions. And one question that I've been getting a lot is, why should my brain think that not sleeping is more important than sleeping? And that's a very smart question to ask, because it certainly seems backwards. And right now, your brain is currently programmed to not fall asleep at night. And so it's really important to understand why your brain is working the way that it is, so that you now have the power to fix it. And we're going to get into all of the brain and the subconscious mind stuff in just a moment during today's class. But before we do, there's actually another thing that might be keeping you stuck with insomnia that we really need to address up front. And I've noticed that when people have been dealing with sleeping issues for a long time, that there's 2 common beliefs that I see really all of the time that are contributing to why people aren't getting the results that they want. And so these 2 beliefs also play into why you may seem to stay stuck with insomnia no matter what you try. And what ends up happening is these beliefs end up sabotaging your own results. So have you been believing either of these? As we go through these, I want you to just, check in with yourself and make sure that you aren't self-sabotaging. Remember, everything I teach is from my own experience. And so that means that I also did this for a very long time. I hardcore self-sabotaged my sleep for a really long time. So it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's super common that people start doing this. And so now, though, what we want to focus on is I want to help as many of you as I can avoid this trap. Because I fell into this trap, and this plays into why you seem to stay stuck with insomnia no matter what you try. So the first limiting belief is thinking you've already tried everything. And the reason that I bring this up is because it's actually kind of funny. Thinking you've already tried everything will actually stop you from fixing your sleep. And you may or may not have already noticed that thinking you've already tried everything is actually a perfect example of being on brain autopilot. So with this, what is happening is your brain is taking what you learned in the past from you trying so many different things to fix your sleep. And because those things haven't worked, your brain is now assuming that nothing else will work in the future. And so your brain has created what's called a thought habit. This is just what the brain does. It takes what it learned in the past and it automates what it learned to apply it to your future experiences. So if you are, checking in with yourself right now and you're realizing that you have been thinking that you've already tried everything that there is to try, and that you're thinking that there's nothing else that could possibly work for you, that's just simply a perfect example of how your brain is on autopilot. And if you continue to insist that nothing will work for you, that belief will actually prevent you from getting results. And here we have this famous quote from Henry Ford that says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. This is exactly how the subconscious mind works. So if you've been, kind of feeling like you've already tried everything, I want you to know that, you're definitely not alone in thinking this way. So that's why I want to show you a quick case study so that you can see that new results really are possible, no matter how long you've been dealing with sleep issues. So I'd love for you to meet Terry. And I love to use Terry as a case study because she truly has tried everything. Terry actually works in the sleep medicine industry. She's a registered polysomnographic sleep technologist, and she treats people with sleep apnea, and she's been doing that for over 10 years. And Terry actually works directly with professional sleep doctors as a part of her profession. And she also works the night shift, which added a whole nother layer of complexity to her sleep situation. And so for 30 years, Terry suffered from insomnia, and she has tried all sorts of sleep aid products on top of she actually consulted with 5 different sleep doctors trying to figure out why she still couldn't fall asleep. And actually, that brings up a good point. How about you guys, can you type me in the chat if you've also been to a sleep doctor looking for help with your insomnia? I'm curious to just kind of know how many of you have also gone to sleep doctors and maybe like what sort of plan they recommended for you or whatever you're open to sharing with us in the chat. But for Terry, despite 30 years and no answers, even though she literally works in sleep medicine, Terry still didn't give up, and she kept looking for answers, and she decided to follow the sleep success method to learn how to approach her sleep in a new way to work with the subconscious mind. And by doing this, Terry got a new result. And she said, my first week, I slept naturally 3 nights in a row, which I hadn't been able to do in 20 years. Finding the sleep success method was the missing link I'd been looking for after suffering from the detrimental effects of insomnia for decades. Yeah, so I love this so much because this is exactly what is possible for you too when you have the right process to follow. And we're going to be talking all about the sleep success method strategy in the next session in part 3 so that you can see exactly how it's all broken down. Awesome. So I'm looking at the chat. So a lot of you have said yes, me. A lot of you are saying me in the sense that you have gone to some sleep doctors. Not everybody has. Some people have read some books. Colleen says me, didn't help. People have gone to their physicians, psychiatrists, and whatnot. Yeah, okay. So pretty good range. But the point of me asking that was just to let you know that even if you have gone through all of the lengths of going to sleep doctors and they haven't helped you, if that was your experience, do not give up because you can still change this. And Terry is a perfect example of that. Okay, belief number 2 that keeps people stuck with insomnia is thinking that insomnia is too hard to get rid of. So this is a big one. And some people think this until they consider that the underlying cause of their insomnia is in the subconscious mind. Insomnia only seems hard to get rid of if you've been focusing on the wrong things. And I love this photo because if you keep going straight in the same direction that your brain has been going on autopilot, you already know what result you're going to get. You're going to get the same result as before, which is insomnia, right? Then to get a new result, what you have to do is you have to turn in a different direction and you have to try something new. And the fact that you're here today means that you're already going in a new direction. You took the initiative to register, to show up today, and to watch all 3 parts of this masterclass series. So you already know that you have to do things in a new way that you've never done before if you want to experience any sort of improvement in your sleep. And because you're attending the masterclass series right now, you are now going to be focusing on the right things, which means that you're already making a lot of progress just by being here. One more quick case study so that you can really see for yourself what is possible when you learn how to work with your subconscious mind. So meet Dan. Dan had insomnia for 40 years. And just like with Terry, I actually would love to know If you guys could let me know in the chat right now, I'd love to know how long you've been dealing with insomnia yourself. So go ahead and type in the chat, how many days, weeks, months, years that you've been dealing with poor sleep and trying to fix the problem. Because for most of you here, it's probably less than 40 years. I'm sure there are some people here where it's 40 years, maybe even more than 40 years, but the majority of you, it's probably less than 40 years. So let me know in the chat how long you've been dealing with insomnia. And so for Dan, 40 years is 4 decades of poor sleep. And that's a pretty long time. And so Dan was really starting to feel like insomnia was just too hard to get rid of, understandably, right? And Dan, he really tried everything out there. I've listed it out here on the slides. He tried sleep restriction, sleeping pills, natural supplements, meditation, keeping a sleep diary, consistent bedtimes. He read all the sleep books out there, eating all the right foods, exercising, eliminating alcohol, salt lamps, yoga, it goes on and on. And none of those things worked. And Dan was actually on sleeping medication for 30 years straight, despite throughout his professional career in the corporate world. And despite all of this, Dan didn't give up, right? 40 years, he still didn't give up, and he decided to approach his sleep using the sleep success method. And because of that, he got an absolutely incredible new result. Dan said, I saw improvements in my sleep within a few days of following the sleep success method. I now fall asleep very quickly each night, and the quality of my sleep has gotten significantly better. I no longer need sleeping pills to fall asleep. I wish I had this method 40 years ago. Wow. So this makes me so happy. He went from 30 years of sleeping pills to now falling asleep without needing any sleeping pills, which is freaking fantastic. I don't want to swear, but it's freaking fantastic. Let me see what you guys are saying in the chat. So some people are saying 30 years, 35 years, 2 years when I began experiencing depression and anxiety. Yep, it makes total sense. Mary said that as a child, she started having issues and she's now 51. 4 years, 40 plus, 40 years, 40 or more for me, 30 years, 12 years, 7 years, 15 years, 5 years, 23 years, 10 years. Since November, so that's not quite a year. So we've got a pretty good range here, which I'm not surprised, because insomnia can literally happen at any time in your life. You can't escape it, depending on what your brain has been learning and the life experiences, which we're going to get into in just a second. But the point of this is that the reason I show you these case studies is because I find, for myself at least, that hearing other people's stories, first, it makes us realize that we're not alone, right? There's other people who've dealt with this also. And then second, it also shows us what's truly possible for us, regardless of what you've tried before or how long you have been struggling with this. So here we just went through 2 examples of real people who spent 30 years and 40 years trying a bunch of things to fix their sleep that didn't work. And the most important thing here is that they didn't give up. And all it took was them approaching their sleep in a new way. So I hope you're feeling, a little bit more re-inspired after seeing these 2 case studies with Terry and Dan, because seeing other people overcome challenges really inspires us to start believing in ourselves once again, which is critical to be able to work with your subconscious mind to get a new result. So have you begun to realize how important it is to take your brain off autopilot yet? What this really all boils down to is you must approach your sleep in a new way to get new results. Albert Einstein said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So consciously, that makes a lot of sense, but subconsciously, we're all on autopilot all the time, and we don't realize that we're actually repeating the same patterns day in and day out. And by the end of this masterclass series, you will definitely see that insomnia can actually be quite simple to get rid of once you have the right process to follow. So how must you approach insomnia to get new results? How do we go from being racing mind Rachel to peace of mind Paige? So if I lost you so far and you started checking your email, now's the time to come back and pay attention once again. Insomnia must be approached as a survival mechanism. And this is what I did. I started approaching insomnia from the perspective of it being a survival mechanism that my brain was using to either protect me from something or to benefit me in some way. Because here's the thing, the brain always has a reason for the way that it works. Always. Even with many things that we often interpret as negative, like insomnia, like anxiety, like stress, like racing thoughts, there is always a purpose for it, whether we are consciously in tune with that purpose or not. 95% of the time, we're not aware of why we are experiencing any of those things, because 95% is controlled by the subconscious mind. And so what we're going to get into now is why the brain thinks that not sleeping is more important than sleeping, which is why you've been kept with insomnia up until this point. And so now's a really, really good time to pay attention, because once I understood everything that we're about to cover, I had a huge light bulb moment. And it's really when everything started to change for me. And you might find yourself having that same light bulb moment as we go through this. So that light bulb moment was when I realized that my brain thinks it's helping me by keeping me awake at night. Have you ever considered this? Have you ever considered that your brain thinks it's helping you, that your brain thinks it's doing you a favor by keeping you awake at night? So type yes or no in the chat. At some point, your brain learned that your mind racing at night was helping you in some way. And the reason that the brain does this is because the subconscious mind is perceiving a threat when you want to fall asleep. And the key word here is perceived. It does not have to be real. It does not matter if there is an actual immediate threat to your well-being. It only has to be perceived by the subconscious mind. And just by your brain picking up on that perception, your brain will then send a signal to your body as if there was a real threat right in front of you. And that's what turns on the fight or flight response. And so this is what's happening with racing thoughts, anxiety, stress, PTSD, panic attacks, that's a big one, insomnia, and so many other symptoms. And I want to be really clear here that this is not your perception. This is your brain's perception. This is your brain doing this automatically without your conscious control. It's an automatic response from the subconscious part of the mind. And so I'm seeing a lot of you in the chat saying that you've never considered that your brain would be helping you by trying to keep you awake at night. But it makes a lot of sense when we look at it from this perspective. And it's not your fault that you have anxiety or depression or stress or PTSD or insomnia in your life. And I want to let you guys know that I've experienced all those things. I've experienced anxiety, that's a big one. Obviously a lot of stress. I feel like everybody experiences a ton of stress in their life. PTSD for sure, depression, panic attacks, and insomnia, clearly. That's why we're all here today. So I know what those all feel like. And I also know how it really feels out of your control when you're going through it. And I'm going to explain a lot of this a lot more clearly. So stay with me, because this is all extremely important and it really can be life-changing once you get how this all works. So biologically, this is what happens when the fight or flight response is on. The stress levels in your body go up, which is cortisol. So stress levels go up, which feels like the mind racing or anxiety. And when that happens, melatonin levels go down, which is why you can't fall asleep. So this is exactly how the fight or flight response works, because as long as we are perceiving a threat, it doesn't make sense to go to sleep, because that would just make you more vulnerable to the threat. So as stress levels go up, melatonin levels go down so that you can remain alert. And this is what's happening at night when you can't fall asleep due to your mind racing. And so here's another way that we can look at it. So we all have a natural body clock. Your brain releases melatonin in the evening, which signals to your body to become tired so that you eventually fall asleep. Right now, your subconscious mind is perceiving a threat at night, which is returning the fight or flight response on. And when the fight or flight response is on, melatonin levels are suppressed. And so you can't fall asleep. So this is what people don't tell you about sleeping. If this fight or flight response is activating, the falling asleep part isn't going to happen. And then here are all of these Band-Aid fixes that people try to do to make the falling asleep part happen. But then this is how the brain reacts to the Band-Aid fixes. The brain still does everything that it can to keep you awake, which is why sleep aid products don't work for most people, or they at least don't work long-term. You know, they wear off because the brain is on autopilot from the things that it learned in the past. And the subconscious mind still thinks that you're under threat at night. And so it's not gonna let you fall asleep no matter what you try. So it's not you, it's just the way that your brain is literally not meant to work for these Band-Aid fixes. The brain sees that these things are Band-Aids and it, you know, slaps it away. And so there's actually nothing wrong with you, and you guys don't need to be fixed because the brain is actually doing exactly what it's supposed to do, which is a really good news. And now that you know that it's the subconscious mind that has been perpetuating this insomnia pattern, you can now start focusing on changing the subconscious patterns, and you can start giving your brain new information to work with because the brain is very, very adaptable, which we know through neuroplasticity. So you now might be wondering, you know, why is my subconscious perceiving a threat when I want to fall asleep, even though I'm not under any threat? So let's talk about how this works. So this is why so many people get stuck with insomnia. So I want to know, what did you have for dinner last night? I really want to know, what did you have for dinner? So think about it for a moment and let me know in the chat if you really want to. I'm going to give you guys a second because the chat's a little delayed on my end. So I'm going to wait a second for you guys to kind of catch up with me here. From before, I'm seeing a lot of you guys are saying it's a form of protection, makes sense. Yes. Sarah asked, what if we can fall asleep but can't stay asleep? I wake up 2 hours like clockwork. So Sarah, keep paying attention because we're going to start getting into why that happens as well. Okay, cool. So some of you are saying you had fish, vegetarian meal, salmon, salad, Panda Express, baked fish, love it. So this beautiful pizza is not an actual picture of my dinner. I'm not very talented in the kitchen. I'm working on changing that. But when you just thought about what you had for dinner, did an image come to mind? I want to know, did you kind of see an image in your mind that helped you remember what you ate for dinner last night? So tell me yes in the chat if you visualized what you had for dinner, because this is most likely how most of you remembered. And the reason for that is because we store details about events in our mind through images. We remember most things through images. So when I asked you, what did you eat for dinner last night? Did you see it in your mind to remember? Yeah, I'm saying yes, a lot of you, for most of you, you did. So whenever we have a stressful event in our life, all of those details about the event are stored as vivid imagery in the subconscious mind. So you can kind of think of this as the event being recorded in your mind, kind of like a movie being recorded in your mind very brightly and very intensely. Then, when anything that happens that resembles the event in the future, all of the same data comes flooding in and it overwhelms the nervous system because the mind thinks that it's in danger. And because the mind thinks that it's in danger, that creates a physiological response in the body. And that's why when you feel stressed or anxious or nervous or scared or have racing thoughts or, you know, whatever negative emotion, even if you don't really know the reason for why you're feeling like that. And so now when you go and you live your everyday life, your subconscious mind is constantly analyzing everything around you. And your subconscious mind is on 24/7. It's what keeps your heart beating, your lungs breathing, your blood circulating, literally everything. And so as you go about your day-to-day life, your subconscious mind is constantly analyzing everything around you. And if it picks up anything in your environment that resembles a past event where you felt unsafe or stressed or on high alert, because your brain is an automated machine, it's using the old information it learned from the past to signal to your body to have a fight or flight response now. So is everybody following me so far? Type yes in the chat. We're gonna break this down even further because I know this is like kind of complex, but I'm gonna go through an example on the next couple slides that's gonna really make sense for a lot of you. So this is how humans respond to threats. And if you remember from earlier, the brain only needs to be perceiving a threat for this to happen and for the brain to really start signaling that stress response in the body. And it's your subconscious mind that's determining if there is a perceived threat or not. Cool. I'm seeing a lot of you guys are saying, yes, you're following me. Fantastic. So glad. Well, now what's kind of interesting is that animals can't store memory. Animals don't store memories out about events in detail in their mind. So now we're going to compare the difference between how animals and humans respond to threats, because this is a really helpful way to understand how this all works for us. So how do animals respond to threats? So animals learn through association and repetition. So in this example, we have a zebra and we have a lion. A zebra cannot feel fear of a lion unless there is a lion present. The zebra can't be afraid of the lion unless it sees a lion in front of it. Zebras can't remember lions and zebras can't imagine lions. But if a lion shows up and it sees a lion, then the zebra's nervous system is automatically designed to protect it. So now let's compare that to how humans work. And let's look at the difference between animals and humans. So with the zebra now, there's no lion anymore. And since there's no lion, the zebra doesn't think about the lion. Plain and simple. It doesn't think about it. And so the zebra just goes about its life peacefully until another lion shows up. And then when that lion shows up, then the zebra has the instinctual response again to fight or flight. But as soon as the lion isn't a threat anymore, the zebra doesn't keep thinking about the lion or doesn't keep reliving the experience of trying to escape the lion. Zebras can't do that. No animal can do that. But what humans do is our minds keep trying to escape the lion, even if there's no more lion in front of us. I'm sure you guys can relate to this. So here I am in this photo on vacation in Guanajuato, Mexico. I'm not under any threat. I'm enjoying myself. I'm being a tourist, exploring the city. So let's just say that as I'm going about, hit the microphone, as I'm going about exploring the city, my subconscious mind is always analyzing all of the data around me, all the millions of data points at every single moment. And this is all happening subconsciously. So let's just say that my brain picks up on something in my environment that resembles an experience from my past where I was under some sort of threat, where I was either stressed, anxious, something, or there was something disturbing happening, traumatic, something stressful happening. And so as soon as the brain picks up on similar cues, that's why I start to have a physiological response in my body and I start to feel anxious, or I start to feel stressed or nervous, or I start to have a panic attack. But I don't really know why I'm feeling this way, right? I'm just going about my vacation, and out of nowhere I'm feeling on high alert. And that's because, according to my brain, there's a lion from my past here. Maybe there's a particularly ferocious one over there. And then maybe there's a whole freaking herd of lions lining up, coming one after the other right for me, right? But the thing is, there's actually no threat in front of me. There's no real lion in front of me. But my brain is giving me the signal and the physiological response as if there were. And since my brain is preparing my body to fight or flight, then what happens is I'm feeling this way. And so then I start looking for a threat, but I don't see any real threat. My mind can't find the danger because there is no real danger. And so the system just starts looping. And so now I'm feeling out of control and I'm wondering, why do I feel this way? Why am I anxious? Why am I stressed all the time? Why can't I sleep at night? What's wrong with me? I'm not under any immediate threat, but yet I'm feeling out of control. And it's because the data from the previous event that is stored in your subconscious mind, the subconscious mind is using old information as a resource. It's just, your mind is just using old stuff as a resource. And the mind starts to prepare the body just in case you need to fight or flight. And so with insomnia, this is what's happening at night if you can't fall asleep easily, because your mind won't turn off, or you can't relax, or you feel anxious going to bed. So can you guys let me know in the chat, is this resonating with you? Is anybody having, an aha moment, a breakthrough right now? Let me know in the comments if this is maybe blowing your mind just a little bit. This was my light bulb moment, and I hope you're having the same aha moment right now, because when I first learned this, I was like, oh my God, it all makes sense now. We have the exact same system as animals, except as humans, we add in the component of memory. So now there's constant lions. We're thinking about lions, we're remembering lions, we're imagining lions. So our nervous system is constantly getting activated, even if there's not a real threat in front of us anymore, because it's just using information from our past memories. So I'm seeing you guys saying, aha. Jenny says, yes. Avin says, it's beginning to make sense. Good. Mohini says, makes sense. Tice says, I'd love to be a zebra. Diane says, sounds right. Lisa says, yes, absolutely. Carrie says, cool. Looks like this is resonating. Kirsten says, yes, looping is a huge problem for me at night. Yeah, that's super common. Kirsten, you're not alone there. And Thea says, definitely want to be a zebra. Joyce says, I want to be like the zebra. Rebecca says, zebras are awesome. Cool. So it looks like this is resonating. And for those of you who it hasn't quite clicked for you yet, go back and rewatch this again later, because it's going to sink in the second time you hear it if it hasn't sunk in yet already. So the subconscious mind is literal, okay? The subconscious mind cannot distinguish between what is real or imagined. If you imagine it, your mind thinks it's happening right now. I'm going to repeat this again. This is so important. The subconscious mind cannot distinguish between what is real or imagined. If you imagine it, your mind thinks it's happening right now. This is why it is so easy to get trapped in a repetitive thought loop. Because as soon as you start thinking and imagining something, your mind thinks it's happening, and so you get stuck in it. And so I put these photos here of virtual reality games because I think this is another helpful way to think about it. So if you have a virtual reality headset on, it feels really real. I don't know if you've tried it before. If you haven't, that's totally okay. But when you put on that virtual reality headset, it feels like you're in the game, like it's your real life. It's very trippy. So if you're in the virtual reality game and you're doing something treacherous in the game, you actually physically start to sweat and you physically start to feel anxious because your mind thinks it's really happening. And one cool thing that I was reading about recently is that they are actually using virtual reality as a type of therapy for people who have a fear of heights. And so they're having patients who have an extreme fear of heights do things in the virtual reality game, like walking a plank or, saving a cat from up a tree. And the studies have shown that by completing those types of tasks in the game, that it actually has decreased their fear of heights in real life. It's the exact same concept. The subconscious mind can't tell what is real or what's imagined. So if you're successfully walking a plank or climbing up a tree in a virtual reality game, that is training your subconscious mind that not all heights are dangerous. So bringing this back to insomnia, when your mind is activated at night and you can't fall asleep, it's because your subconscious mind thinks it's more important for you to be awake, because it thinks a threat is about to happen. And so it's preparing you just in case and doesn't want you to fall asleep just in case. So your subconscious is perceiving a threat when you want to fall asleep. And this is really why you've been kept stuck with insomnia up until now. And it's because all of the conventional approaches to get rid of insomnia, they don't take this into account. It's really the missing piece of the puzzle. So let's look at how your brain could be perceiving a threat. So this could be that your brain is associating nighttime with not being safe. It could be that your brain is associating sleeping as not being safe. Your brain might believe that relaxing is not being safe. And these are just a few scenarios that could be playing out subconsciously. So if you've been conditioned to be on edge or to be on high alert all of the time, your brain has made the connection that you have to be like that all of the time to survive. So that's why you might have a hard time feeling good or feeling calm or feeling relaxed. And actually another scenario that is very, very common, and actually type me in the chat if this sounds like you, because this is super common and definitely applied to my life. And that is that your subconscious might be thinking that it's more helpful for you to be awake at night because it thinks that it's helping you prepare for your day tomorrow. I see that all the time. So it's like your subconscious wants to keep you up thinking because it thinks that it's helping you survive tomorrow, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But from the subconscious mind's perspective, that's what's going on. And with all of these scenarios, your nervous system is just getting activated at night, which suppresses the melatonin levels. And so that's why you can't fall asleep. And when you can't fall asleep at night, it's just because your survival mind is accessing old information and it's preparing you just in case something might happen. But since nothing is actually happening, your mind can't find the danger because there is no danger. And so the system just starts looking for the danger. And that's causing a dysregulation in the nervous system, which is preventing you from sleeping. Cool. I'm seeing a lot of you saying me in the chat. Kelly says 100%. My brain keeps me up going over all I have to do. My mind is looping on a treadmill brain all night long. Completely know what that feels like. Shirley says crazy. Melinda says that sounds right. Lorraine says me. Kathy says me. Person says I do too. It's a very real thing. This is mostly why I battle to sleep as I'm scared at night and have nightmares too. Yeah, it can be. And that was in response to Lulu, who has a fear of the dark. So yes, all of these things are the subconscious mind using something it learned in the past that protected you at some point, but it's still using that information today where it's no longer relevant. What this all comes down to is your mind is trying to protect you. It's just working with outdated information. The mind is trying to help you survive. And when you look at it from this perspective, it makes a lot more sense now, right? I mean, remember when I said earlier that, I would tell you why your brain would think that not sleeping is more important than sleeping? Well, this is why, this right here. And this to me is so, so powerful because it helps you realize that, you're not broken. Your brain is functioning properly. Your brain is doing exactly what it's designed to do. And all it comes down to now is being able to show your subconscious mind the new information to work with so that it stops running on autopilot from the old information that caused your insomnia to begin in the first place. You have to reprogram your subconscious to allow sleep once again. So I know you guys are wondering, what's the best way to go about this? How can you convince your subconscious mind that sleeping is more important than not sleeping? And there are 3 things that need to happen. And I really like to think of them as puzzle pieces. And that's what we're going to cover this week in part 3 on Thursday. Part 3 is where you'll see exactly how the sleep success method strategy works. And I'm going to walk you through the strategy that I teach my students, and you're going to get the full blueprint for how it all works and why it's so effective. And because you've now attended both parts 1 and 2 of this masterclass series, part 3 is going to make a whole lot of sense for you. It's going to really tie everything together, and I think you're going to find it pretty powerful. Part 3 is all about my 3-step approach, and all 3 of these things are essential to focus on if you want to get results, as quickly as humanly possible. And then at the end of the part 3, I'm going to show you how you can really take everything that you've learned throughout this masterclass series and take it even a step further if you're interested in speeding up your results. So this is really the fastest way that I have found. I would argue that maybe it's the only way to actually fix your sleep problems for the long term, because everything originates in the subconscious mind, absolutely everything, which is why all of these 3 pieces are so, so important. So when's part 3? Part 3 is this Thursday, July 8th. Same time, 10 a.m. Pacific time, which is 12 p.m. Central or 1 p.m. Eastern. Make sure it's on your calendar. If you're in the UK, that will be 6 p.m. your time. And if you're in South Africa, 7 p.m. your time. And that'll be live in the Facebook group. And if you're in Australia or New Zealand, you'll see the replay Friday morning when you wake up, since you're like way ahead of me on the time zone clock. If you want to attend live, if you're in Australia and New Zealand, it's like 4 or 5 in the morning. So try to get some sleep if you can, unless you want to join us live. We're obviously more than happy to have you join us and hang out with us live in the chat. You guys definitely want to be there for part 3. major props to all of you for showing up for part 2 today. You would be surprised at the number of people who only watch part 1 and then they never get through the rest of it. So many people quit because they get back stuck on autopilot. They take the initiative to do something new, right? Your initiative was registering, you showed up for part 1, you're initiating the new pattern, but then people default to their old way of being and they default to autopilot again, and then they never finish parts 2 and 3. So be proud of yourself because you're already shifting the autopilot mode just by showing up to each of these 3 trainings, because you really have to commit. You have to remember that our default is to go back to what we've always done in the past, but that's only going to keep you stuck getting the same results that you've had so far. So you definitely want to be there for part 3. Most people never finish what they started, and so you are already way ahead of the curve. You're showing up for yourself. You're learning new things. You can start applying to your sleep right away. So be proud of yourself for the level of commitment that you've shown so far. Part 2 homework. If you'd like a second entry into the $100 Amazon gift card giveaway, all you need to do is post your biggest takeaway from part 2 in the Facebook group using the hashtag part2takeaway. Simple enough. This is the same thing that we did for part 1. So right now, just go ahead and create a new post in the Facebook group and use the hashtag part2takeaway. And posting in the group is going to help you remember what we just went through today. We covered a whole lot, and what time is it? In the span of like 45 minutes was the whole class. Maybe a little bit longer, but yeah, we just went through a whole lot. And so do yourself a favor and post in the group, because it's really going to help it sink in for you even more. And I loved reading all of your takeaways from the class last week. It seems like it's really starting to click for so many of you, which makes me really happy. And then I'll also let you guys know how you can get your 3rd and final entry into the giveaway at the end of part 3 on Thursday, which is just 2 days from now. It's going to come up super fast. So between now and then, make sure to do your part 2 takeaway in the group. Let me just kind of scroll through the chat to see if there's anything that I want to comment on. Jenny asked, any homework? Your only homework is to post in the Facebook group what you learned from today's class. Bridget says, thank you for your time in presenting the second part. Please post the recording version. Love to see it again. Yes, the replay of this will be posted. It'll be available in the Facebook group immediately once we're done with this, because it just becomes it automatically posted, I think. And then it'll be available on my website later today. It takes me like a few hours to upload it because it's like a really large file. So I have to let the computer upload it, which takes some time. But yes, the replay will be available if you guys want to watch this again, which is honestly a really good idea. From part 1, I noticed that some of you posted in the group that you watched part 1 a second time, that you noticed even more things that you didn't hear the first time, which makes total sense. Anytime I attend a class or a training, I always miss things, right? Because you get stuck thinking about the last thing I said, and then I've already moved on to something new. So you always learn something new the second time around. Cool. Let's see what else. Vimla says, we need a zebra PJs. Oh my gosh, I love that idea. I should get some. I think that's actually such a good idea. Tina says, sweet dreams, people. That's so sweet of you. Rebecca likes the zebra pajama idea. Let's see. So Vanessa brings up a good point. So Vanessa says, I'm assuming this all applies if you don't have issues falling asleep, but instead have issues staying asleep, or just being a very light sleeper where you fall in and out of dreaming and being awake. Yeah, so so this all applies to definitely falling asleep. And then in terms of staying asleep, the subconscious mind, for some of you, the subconscious mind could have a program where it doesn't let you stay asleep all night, and it wants to wake you up in case something is going to happen or to prepare you for something. And so it's waking you up early because of that. And so the sleep success method strategy that we're going to talk about on Thursday still applies if you are the type of person who wakes up in the middle of the night, because it's going to help you fall back asleep. And then with repetition, you can reprogram your mind to allow you to sleep longer and longer through the night. Remember, this is a process, right? It's not a quick fix. It takes commitment and repetition, but it definitely still applies to you if your issue is waking up in the middle of the night. Let's see. Shireen says, thank you, appreciated. Jennifer says, thank you, you're welcome. Kirsten says, gee, how do I choose one takeaway? I know. There was a lot. You could post more than one if you want, but just put it in one post in the group. Love it. Let's see. Kathy says, so glad you're doing this masterclass series again. I started last time and had things happen and did not get to watch the replays. Yay, Kathy, welcome back. I'm so glad that you were able to fit it into your schedule this time. I know life is crazy for so many of us, and it can be hard to get through all of the trainings, but the fact that you showed up and you're attending this time is awesome. Let's see, what else? Caroline says, I'm hearing a lot of things that make sense. Perfect. Cool. Scrolling. Hang on, I have to go back down to the bottom because you guys said a lot of stuff I didn't see. Marie says, the brain is like a computer, it seems. 100%. The brain is like a computer on steroids. People describe the brain as a supercomputer. It's incredible the capacity that our brains have to remember and store detail. It's very fascinating. And there's a lot that people that actually, like brain scientists and people who study the brain, there's so much that they don't even know about the brain yet. A lot of it's a big mystery. But this stuff about the subconscious mind is really stuff that most people never learn their entire lives. So the fact that you're here at least getting exposure to this is very, it can be a really big game changer if you start diving into this deeper and really applying it. And Thea says, thank you for your time and training. You're so welcome. Rebecca says, you're an awesome angel on this beautiful earth. Oh, that's so sweet. And I agree, our earth is beautiful. Let's see. Jenny's asking, what was the relevance of last week's homework? So last week after part 1, I wanted you guys to observe your thought patterns when you can't fall asleep and notice if your brain is thinking about the past mostly, if it's like reliving situations from your past, or if it's mostly thinking about the future and worrying about the future and stuff that you have to do tomorrow. So I wanted you to pay attention and see if you could notice which direction your thought patterns tend to default to. And the relevance of that is to get you to start observing your mind, really to start observing your thoughts and noticing when your brain is on autopilot. Because when your brain shifts into one of those ways of thinking, it's because it's on autopilot. And so it's to get you to start catching yourself when that's happening, because the act of catching yourself in the act of being on autopilot is already disrupting that automatic program that's built into the subconscious. Very important. Linda says her part 2 takeaway is I need to override my fight or flight reaction. Totally. And I would say that it's not necessarily overriding it, because it's gonna happen automatically in the beginning. In the beginning, the fight or flight response and the stress and the anxiety response will happen because it's out of your control. It's because the brain is just using what it learned in the past. But the more you start interrupting that thought pattern and you start actually noticing when it's happening and recognizing that it's not due to anything real that's happening right now, that it's actually due to something that's from the past, that's old information, it's old, outdated information that doesn't apply to your life anymore, that's when you start interrupting it. And the more that you interrupt it over time, just by observing yourself and consciously recognizing that it's not real, it's from the past that's creating you to feel that way, that by doing that over time, that's when, through practice and consistency, you will stop having the fight or flight response as frequently. It's really, that builds up more resiliency in your nervous system. And then eventually you'll get to the point where things that used to trigger you and used to initiate the fight or flight, anxiety, stress, whatever response, things that used to create that feeling in you, they won't anymore. And it's really, really fascinating to kind of observe yourself and see those shifts happen. And it's like such a huge turning point. And it's so worth putting in the effort to get to that point, because it just changes your entire life and your whole mental state. It's like, I used to go around my life being so on high alert, so self-conscious, just like on edge all of the time. And now I'm just like super chill most of the time. Like, things don't really bother me. I'm able to kind of look at things in a new way, and my nervous system doesn't get activated as easily anymore. Let's see. Trisha says, I'm off work for the summer, so I'm determined to crack this. That's perfect. Anna Marie says, now need to learn how to be a zebra. I need those zebra pajamas. I'm literally going to go online and look for some after this. Let's see. Cool. Marie says, self-awareness sounds imperative. Self-awareness is very important, and it's a skill. You know, we're not born we're kind of conditioned as we grow up to care more about what other people think than what our own experience is. And so we kind of become conditioned to lose touch with our emotions and ourself and how we're feeling. And we kind of lose that self-awareness as time goes on. But it's there. You just have to start looking for it. And the more that you look for it, the more you will find it. Okay, love this. So many great comments. Thank you guys so much. I'm so happy that you showed up today. I hope this was good for you guys. Let me know before we wrap up, you know, are you glad you joined us today? Did you have a light bulb moment? Any ahas? If you had any aha moments, share them with us in the Facebook group with the hashtag Part 2 Takeaway. And you're already more than halfway through with the Masterclass series now. There's just one part left on Thursday, July 8th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, same time as we started, same time, same place. And then this Thursday, you're going to get insight into the exact strategy that's not only worked for me to overcome insomnia, but also my clients as well. And it's all about subconscious transformation, which is my favorite topic because it is so powerful. Some last reminders, just keep being active in the Facebook group, take advantage of it. There's over 2,500 people in the Facebook group, and the group's only going to be open during the trainings. So take advantage of it while it's open. And the winner of the Amazon gift card will be announced on Monday, July 12th, next week. Awesome. I see you guys live you guys saying thank you in the chat. You're welcome. So glad that you showed up today. And don't forget to keep checking your emails for me. Make sure you're getting all my updates and important announcements. And that's it for today, you guys. This was so much fun. And I'm really excited for Thursday. I hope you can show up live Thursday again. And that's it. So have a great week between now and Thursday, just 2 days. And I will see you guys in the Facebook group. I'm going to be reading through everything in there. I'm doing my best to comment on as many of your posts as I can, but there's thousands of you in there and one of me. So just know that I am reading everything and I'm trying to reply to as many as I can. But I'm loving everything that I'm seeing in there, and you guys participating is really making this more interactive and helping you get a lot more out of the training as well. Cool. Amazing. Well, that's it, guys. I am going to sign off now, and I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you on Thursday. Bye for now.